Let's turn now to Afghanistan. In the latest restriction faced by women there, the Taliban, been in power since August 2021, have ordered the closure of hair and beauty salons. Beauty salons sprung up in the capital, Kabul, and other Afghan cities after the Taliban's first stint in power was ended in late 2001. They came back 20 years later. We turn to two human rights campaigners who fled Afghanistan, as so many others have done since August 2021, but they remain in contact with their friends, family and colleagues in Afghanistan. Sarah Wahedi is a human rights activist currently in Seattle, who's pioneered a safety app called Itaze that provides real-time security information to its user. And Marzia Babakarkhail is a campaigner in the UK, in this country, with over 8 years of legal expertise as a family court judge in Afghanistan, who fled back in 2008 after creating a foundation to educate girls. Thank you to you both for joining us. Sarah, I don't know if you were able to hear Sana, our journalist there, talking about the reducing freedoms for women. Now that beauty salons are gone, where do things stand with the women that you know? What have they been telling you?
Well, for us, one of the main responses from women has been that they've made women and girls prisoners. That's really the main reaction of a lot of women, friends, colleagues, relatives that I'm in contact with. And definitely what Sana had said, we will see makeshift beauty salons in our people's homes, relatives, sisters, other women helping each other to get ready for these important events. But it's important to remember that this is a catastrophic loss in terms of employment as well. Even before the Taliban takeover, women, one of the main ways that women were able to find employment, because there was just such a sheer need of beauty salons for the day-to-day self-refinement and beautifying needs for women, was a salon. So the fact that this is gone is going to have just such a catastrophic loss in terms of employment as well.
Marzia, you of course, imagine like Sarah, must still know people, women in Afghanistan. This latest reduction in the freedom for those women who are left, how do you reflect on it?
The women in Afghanistan, of course, day by day, the Taliban are imposing limitation on women, and there is no answer why. If we think this is a kind of Islamic rules, we have country neighbors, why the rules of Islam is different in our neighbor countries, but more than tough for women in Afghanistan. That's, of course, is a devastating impact in me and all women in Afghanistan.
Sarah, in Seattle, in the United States, for the women that you speak to, and we do here at the BBC make efforts to speak to women in Afghanistan ourselves. We regularly play their voices when we can be as reasonably assured as we can that they are not overly jeopardizing their safety. But describe what will be a typical day now for the women that you know, Sarah.
Well, for those who I've spoken to today, just before this interview, they're all of my colleagues who work with me on my team at Ihtisab, and they've all mentioned that the last place we had to mingle socially is gone. And what that's going to look like is we are going to have to rely on our home to provide us these basic services in terms of salons, in terms of healthcare, finding other avenues for support. And really, truly, I mean, all we're really seeing is healthcare at its basic level for women being provided, but that's really it. And we're looking at employment, education, healthcare, everything being refined to the home space. And that, in terms of Afghanistan, is incredibly difficult to manage, because already healthcare is such a sensitive issue in terms of accessibility. But the fact that urban mobility has been limited to nothing will have such honestly, a horrific influence on women. And one of the main things that my colleagues have been saying to me is psychologically also, this is a huge blow to women, and the fact that they are truly realizing that the next step is going to be a complete ban over the urban mobility of women. And the thing that's really frightening me is we have seen this over the last 3 years, and it is happening. It is happening in stages, and the last step really is 1996 Afghanistan with curtains over the windows with women who are not going to be able to leave their homes. Everything will be, as Sana said, underground. But the fact that we are here is a huge blow for women's rights.
Marzia, do you see this now as a complete return to the way the Taliban ruled from 1996 to 2001?
The Taliban is the same, but the strategies became more difficult. I think this is now it's a kind of war against women, against freedom for people in Afghanistan. There is no life for people in Afghanistan, especially women in Afghanistan. So the Taliban was difficult for people at the past, and now every day they are releasing this statement is against women, against freedom, and against happiness of people's life in Afghanistan.
Sarah Wahedi in Seattle, for the women that you know so well who are still in Afghanistan, is there a consideration among them, the idea of if it's just them inside the four walls of a house, is it better to try to leave the country?
Every single woman that I'm in contact with, if they don't have an ailing parent or if they don't have any absolute need to be in Afghanistan, want to leave. There is not a single woman with it, whether it's my team or my relatives or friends, who want to stay in Afghanistan. It is only the conversations that we have are about universities, bursaries, scholarships, anything to leave. It has become truly a jail. And as I said, some women on Twitter have been messaging me as we are speaking now, just saying we are prisoners, and that's it. We will be refined to the home.
For those that you know, what is the worst part of how they're having to live?
Like I said, it's definitely psychological. It's the fact that there is a slow encroachment on every social aspect of women. And for those who, may have said, well, we weren't really seeing this huge Western movement across the smaller villages or the other rural provinces. Well, like the salons and schools, these were very social spaces for women. And it is a complete brushstroke over every single urban space for Afghan women and girls. And psychologically, it's crippling for them. The fact that they have no place to be other than the home, and what they're expecting is, other than me needing urgent care, I'm not going to be able to leave. And one of the other things they had mentioned is what's going to happen to wedding halls, what's going to happen to even the aspect of getting married. If there are no beauty salons, does the Taliban actually have a plan also to shut down wedding halls? So this is another thing, is just the institution of marriage. How does that change in terms of this closure of beauty salons?
Sarah Wahedi, human rights activist, currently in Seattle in the United States, and Marzia Babakarkhail, a campaigner here in the UK, formerly a court judge in Afghanistan. Thank you to you both so much. And there is an article on the Asia section of the BBC News website about the subject. We spent the last 10-15 minutes talking about the Taliban order to shut Afghanistan's hair and beauty salons, written by my colleague Nicholas Yong, BBC News in Singapore, featuring a photo of two women, I think actually four women if you include those in the mirror, in a beauty salon, one of those which has been ordered to be closed.